WTMA. Now, here's more Tara on TMA.
Good morning. Our Congressman Mark Sanford was on this show not too long ago, and I suggested to him that perhaps we had changed sides in the war on terror. We love Mark Sanford. But he suggested that I was a little nuts, a little out to lunch, a little crazy. Might be trying to say that just to get the ratings. Well, not the only one. Yeah, joining me now is former CIA officer Clare Lopez. She's a member of the Citizens Commission on Benghazi. Am I nuts? Good morning. Good morning. Is that a crazy statement? Maybe we've switched sides in the war on terror?
No, it's not crazy at all. In fact, I would submit that's exactly what we've done. And the case in point for this most particularly is Libya, where back in 2011, as the revolution broke out against longtime dictator Muammar Gaddafi, who was an odious dictator, a tyrant, if there ever was one, to his own people, but who at the time was actually working with the United States and the West to help keep Al-Qaeda down, to keep them, especially AQIM, Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, to keep them suppressed.
Uh-huh.
So he was our ally in that sense. And on a dime, and for whatever reason, our administration flipped on him and decided not to help him against Al-Qaeda, which was fighting to oust him, but rather to help deliver weapons to Al-Qaeda so that they could overturn a sovereign government that was no threat to the United States at the time.
One of the most shocking things that you found, Clare Lopez, and you were a member of the Citizens Commission on Benghazi, along with some very high-ranking members of the military, just knocked me off my chair, was that the Obama administration allowed, $500 million worth of arms to go to rebel fighters they knew were affiliated with Al-Qaeda. I think you guys found this out through Freedom of Information Act requests. Tell us about it.
Well, in fact, we have submitted now probably well over 80 FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act requests. Unfortunately, we have received absolutely zero response back from any of those requests. But this information in particular came to us through someone an American citizen who came to us and told us the story in the course of our investigation. And the story goes, this is what happened, that Qatar, the Persian Gulf Emirate, decided to support the rebels, support the Libyan rebels who were led politically by the Muslim Brotherhood in Libya. That was the political leadership of the revolution. Under them, the Al-Qaeda militias were in a sort of chain of command relationship. They answered to the political leadership, fought for the political leadership. And so Qatar was supporting them and sent over at least one shipload that we know of. We don't even know how much else went in. But we know that at least one shipload went in of weapons from Qatar to Libya. And it was about $500 million worth of weapons. The weapons were not American. They came from other places. But the point is that as of the end of March 2011, early on in the revolution, NATO, including U.S. Military forces, controlled the air and the sea approaches to Libya, at least from the Mediterranean side.
Mm-hmm.
And so when a ship like this came in, it had to be let through a barricade. It had to be let through the cordon of NATO ships and air support that were bombing our ally, Muammar Gaddafi, at the time. The weapons got through.
We let them through.
Went to the rebels.
Yeah, and Clare Lopez, you're not the only person saying this. I mean, this has been fairly well documented in the New York Times that we moved aside and let the weapons into Libya. And the New York Times had said there are no moderate rebels fighting in Libya. They simply don't exist. They're Al-Qaeda. And even some of the leaders of the rebels that were fighting in Libya who we were arming are like, yeah, we're down with Al-Qaeda. And they had Al-Qaeda backgrounds and long histories with terror organizations. We knew all that. And yet we let them have the weapons. I know that the CIA, and you're a former CIA officer, has had a lot to do with this. Why would we do such a thing against Muammar Gaddafi, who had offered to, he had offered to resign. He had offered, a truce. He didn't want to go to war. Had said, I just want to continue fighting Al-Qaeda. Why would we kill that man? Why would we arm Al-Qaeda against him? What is the thinking, do you think, inside the CIA and the White House?
Well, this is the policy of this particular administration of ours that came in 2009. And that policy was to allow the forces of Islam to rise to power throughout the Middle East and North Africa. In the other part of the Middle East, the Persian Gulf area, it's Iran that we're going to enable and empower, and they're going to be allowed to be the hegemon for the Shiite side of things. But in North Africa, the Islamic uprising was to be enabled and empowered to allow the Sunnis, the Muslim Brotherhood, and Al-Qaeda to take power. And that's exactly what has happened. Anyone in the United States administration, at the top levels at least, not through all the working levels, obviously, but at the top levels of leadership, anyone who does not agree with that position to empower the forces of Islam across North Africa is not in the administration anymore. They've been purged. They're not there.
Well, then we find out
top levels agree with this.
Did you hear, Clare Lopez? This just came out from Canada Free Press that apparently Obama and our ambassador to Nigeria threatened the Nigerian government to stop going after Boko Haram, or they would cut off aid to them, and they did. And then now we have the 200 girls kidnapped and Christians killed in the whole 9 yards. I mean, obviously they're still doing it.
Can you imagine? Yes, for at least 2 years, under lots and lots of pressure, the Department of State, under then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, absolutely flat out refused, to put Boko Haram on the U.S. Foreign Terrorist Organizations list, which finally, at the end of last year, now Secretary of State John Kerry did put them on the list, but those 2 years were lost. As you say, the United States was hostile, actively, openly hostile to the Nigerian government effort to go after Boko Haram, which is an Islamic jihad organization, a terrorist organization that really rules the territory of northern Nigeria, the southern half still being predominantly Christian. But of those Christians that were remaining in the north, Boko Haram is slaughtering them by the thousands, murdering people in their churches, and as you say, now kidnap these girls, threaten to sell them into slavery, which, by the way, both slavery and sex slavery are both still condoned officially, authoritatively under Islam. Islamic law permits this. These are the people that our administration did not want to go after.
Yeah. Wish we could tell that story in the United States of America, somewhere outside of WTMA, but at least the Canadians are talking about it in their media. Clare Lopez, a former CIA officer and member of the Citizens Commission on Benghazi, thank you so much for joining us today on 1250 WTMA. Fascinating stuff.